News, tomorrow's Tuesday and I've got someone that is very keen to come up and see the what am I saying, Fiesta. That was actually more of a dent than it was just a scrape, so filling it in. So not everything I do is done with a rattle can, so you can see that the KA is now in the spray booth. So the Fiesta's gone. The guy did come down, I've just realised I dropped a cloth. The guy did come down and did buy the Fiesta at 4,995. Just as he said he would. He was really happy, went for a super long test drive. I always like to go for long test drives, so people get a real good feel for the car. They can try it on with different surfaces, and they show that it's an honest car as well, because if I'm happy for him to go for a long test drive, then I've obviously got nothing to hide. So that has sold. Typical. I dropped the price from 5,795 to 5,495 to 5,295. Book was 5,795 according to Auto Trader, which already sets quite low pricing. It was silver, it had 42,000 miles on it, it was automatic, it was titanium, so it was the right spec. No interest, all over lockdown. And then guess what? He comes to pick up this morning, got another 2 messages, an email and a phone call on that very same car today. So I don't know what happened, whether over lockdown the type of people that drive automatic cars haven't been around or not. Maybe that's what the case was. I don't know, but clearly I probably could have made more money out of it if I'd been prepared to sit on it longer, but I don't have the space to sit on cars for long periods of times. That had already been in for 4 months, which is way more longer than any of my cars are normally in stock. So anyway, it's put 5 grand back in the bank account. For that I could buy another 2 KA, something like that, and make some decent profit out of them. Beams on the way for the Alto, you all agreed that it was acceptable to put a second-hand beam on it. So I found a good second-hand beam. When it comes in, I'll wire brush it, I'll hammerite it, make sure it's all 100%, and we'll stick that on. And like you've all said, no point in losing money if you don't have to. I can break even on it, get out of it that way. I'm just going to be into it for more labour than I'd want ideally. Still a bit quiet on cars overall though. Normally my stuff flies out the door, but I'm going to see what happens come Monday. My prices are at the higher end of where I'd be with them for the other small cars at the moment. So Monday, if the phone starts ringing, you know, with the sort of relaxing of lockdown, then I'll know that it was just the fact it was quiet in my area with lockdown. If it doesn't, I need to come down a bit on price. We'll see what happens. It turns out I had a little bit of the white, the right white, on my shelf. So I did the door and that bit there, sorry, the bit on the bottom of the door, that bit there and that bit there. So that's all done, ready for flatting back. I had to order up another can, and I've started on this section here. We're on our first coat, so you can still see the primer underneath. So we're going to lay a number of coats on there quite heavily, because I'm going to need to flat this back quite a lot, because it'll have to be very orange peel free. So that's all good on that. And then in here we have the crash damaged Ford KA, which Stu has painted for me this morning. Looking very, very shiny. I'm under instructions, I'm not allowed to go too close. Looking very shiny. There's only tiny, I can see a tiny bit of dirt in the top coat there, so it just needs a little bit of a buff back. Whether the red is a good match or not, we're not quite sure at the moment. This is our paint. That is the factory paint flatted. So once it's buffed back up again, the 2 colours look like they should be pretty close. But it'll be tomorrow morning before I peel all this off and we get a chance to have a good look at it. But obviously you guys will be coming along for that. And my repair on the corner of the door seems to be alright. All looks straight, I don't see any scarring or anything there. That all looks good. So yeah, we'll see in the morning. We'll do an unveil. What's trouble my wording today? We'll do an unveil on that tomorrow morning. Again, in hindsight, my advice would be, if you were flipping this car at home and you weren't paying VAT margin like I am, so on this sale I'll lose about £200 in VAT. Pay a guy to come and do it, probably charge £100. One of the people that come out and spray at your home. Let them have the hassle, them have the equipment. You'll be, by the time you bought your paper, bought your cans of paint, your panel cleaner, your filler, all that kind of stuff, you're probably going to be into it for 60, 70 quid in bits. The guy that comes out and sprays a quarter for you there might charge you 100, 150 quid. But he's a professional, he'll get it done quicker, he'll get it done better, and you can be focusing on something else. So, yeah, that would be my advice, but I don't listen to my own advice. couple more coats in now. We're going to do a final wet coat on this. We're going to fade out thinner up here and fade out thinner down here. There's a slight risk to this. We're not painting the whole panel because I'm not 100% confident how good a match the white is. But we'll see. White, you tend to get away with things a little bit more. But you can see I put little arrows for myself on the tape to show myself where to go with colour, where to blend, because it's easy to get lost if you don't remember. So obviously this is all 800 grit here and down here for the fade out thinner. I'd normally go about 1200, but I don't know why I did 800 today. No particular reason. I just want to make sure it's really grabby on this surface here. I think because it's white, I knew I'd get away with a bit more, so I did 800 to give myself a grabbier surface. If it was another colour, I would have done something finer because it's more likely to show up in it. I'm not 100% sure, like I say, about the colour match at the moment. It's difficult to say. It looks ever so slightly yellower, I think. But then where I've done the corners here, you can't really see it at all. So we'll see. But I want to get it as flat as possible because I don't want to have to wet sand, because I don't want to potentially burn through. I want to just be able to machine polish. So my next coat's going to be pretty wet. So I'll put the can in some hot water, leave it for a bit, and then I'm going to flow right across here, quite wet. Obviously to a point where I'm not letting it run, but I'm getting less orange peel and a coverage where I can then just machine polish it back afterwards. Unfortunately, Stu got to the KA before me this morning because he needed to use the spray booth, so it has been unwrapped already, so I'm afraid I can't do that with you. So here is the end result. So you remember we painted this panel here, blended to here, blended up here, painted the bonnet, the new bumper, the wing here, painted this door through to about here where we blended. So what we now need to do is we need to buff these panels up because they're old and scratched, and obviously these are new and shiny. So we need to buff these panels up now and see how close we can get the red to match. Unfortunately, we did have to go up to the edge of the door here in the end with more colour than we wanted because there was very little paint there. So we were going to blend out a bit more there, but we ended up having to put more colour on. But like I say, we'll buff it and move it out into the light, and we'll see what it'll look quite different when it moves outside. Here I don't think it's going to be as much a problem. Obviously the edge of the door here has got some of my sanding marks and stuff, so when I buff that up to a nice high gloss again, it should match better. But yeah, overall it's good. Got only a very minor amount of dust in the top coat, which will buff out. Won't be too much of a problem. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said to you all along, guys, reds are tough and we're never going to get an exact match. And I think you'll find that pretty much every other red KA out there of this age, even if it's not had an accent, is going to have a panel that's a slightly different red on it. It's part and parcel, and obviously we're going to sell this one off cheap. It's going to be at least 30% cheaper than the equivalent car of the same age and miles, so that is not on the register, and will no doubt have, like I said, had paint at some point as well anyway. But yeah, next step, let's get buffing on that. I rattle canned the part of the panel here with a big scratch in it. Rattle canned that last night, so I'm just waiting for that to go off to flat and polish that. My thinking is the paint is a little bit yellower than the old paint, because I had to paint up right to the edge of this door here. When I unwrap this door later, we'll see how much difference it makes again, but I'll buff it right up and take it outside, because under the lights in here things can look worse than they do outside. I think it might only be slightly off because I did the corner of the bumper here and it doesn't look too bad there. So we'll get it all off, get it all buffed up, and then we'll see what the end result looks like. So we'll have the white car for sale, the red car for sale, and the black car for sale outside. Bravo's back in. We had to order the stalks for it, didn't we? New stalks for it. The issue is the washer stalk. If you just do that, it doesn't work. If you do that and pull back hard, it does work. Does that warranty claim? I'm not sure, because it does actually still function. You just have to pull back hard. He says he has to pull back harder than he's comfortable with, and says that he doesn't like the idea that his wife will have to pull back hard on it when she's driving it around or not. But he'd only had it for a few days. I got one on eBay off of a breaker car for £50-60. Obviously we're not going to put a brand new one on the car, because this is a 2008. It didn't have a brand new one on the car when he bought it. We're just looking to improve it. So we've got the battery disconnected at the moment, so the airbag isn't going to be triggered. So we've got the battery disconnected, and then we'll swap the two parts over. Well, Stu's going to do that for me, bless him, because I don't fancy playing around with the airbag side of things. Yeah, so he's going to swap that section out and see if we can't improve his washer side of things. This did actually go out only with a engine and gearbox warranty on it, so I didn't actually warranty things like interior trim and so forth, and switches. But like I say, he only had it for a day. He did pass the MOT with that washer like that as well, so the inspector didn't have a problem with it. So again, comment below, am I being too soft? Probably am, aren't I? Because at the end of the day, the washer works. So yeah, probably been a bit too soft. Again, needs to get tougher, don't I? But it's difficult when it's only gone out for a day or so. It's difficult because you can return a car within the first 14 days. I think you can pretty much return it. So, although you have to have a proper fault. Yeah, it's an interesting one. See what you guys think below. You know, I get mixed comments. People saying you should do anything that's a problem on the car. You dealers make a fortune off of cars. You should fix any problem at all and stop whinging about it. Whereas other people say you're way too soft. It's a used car. You shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. So you can actually see as I'm wet sanding this panel on the KA that the actual stuff is coming off creamy coloured. You see that? This is definitely not the right colour, I don't think. I've just given Marlowe's a ring, and they've said actually turns out there's a couple of variations of the same colour. Crystal white has got some variants, so they're going to come down with some colour chips and try and match it up for me. I don't envy their job. They must constantly get people on the phone and tell them they're giving them the wrong colours when they've in fact given them the right colours, and it's just been poorly applied, that kind of thing. But this looks like it's just not quite right. I'd say every time I'm standing here it's coming off cream coloured, so I'm going to have to flat the whole panel back, get the right colour and respray it. But at least I've done away with the scratch. He's gone down there now, so when it comes to painting it I can leave it masked and just blow over the whole thing again. Bit of a pain, bit of a delay. It's the delay that hurts more than anything, because intention was to have this done and up for sale today, but best laid plans and all that. So as I can't crack on with the white KA at the moment, let's crack on with the red KA and get to polishing out these panels. So where the panels meet, I'm going to take some 2000 grit sandpaper. I'm going to wet sand that area there before I machine polish to give it the best chance of having the best shine to meet the new paint. So we'll crack on and do that. Reason I wet sand is if I use 2000 grit on the sand or anything like that, it does tend to get clogged up unless you spend a lot of money on very good sandpaper. So wet sanding means that as I do this, the paper doesn't get clogged up, and you can see the wet look immediately is closer to the new paint. So if I go along here, like I say, I'm gonna make sure I go in one direction and then the other direction, and then keep dipping the paper in the water so that the paint that's coming off doesn't clog the sandpaper up and cause it to start scratching. So I'm just going to work my way all the way down here, and then we'll get the machine polish on it. There we go, guys. I think we can agree that's a million times better now after that 2000 grit sand and then the 3000 grit compound. You move that at a slower speed, you don't want to burn anything, and then the polish has to take it off. So you just got to work our way around the rest of the car and do all that now, everywhere else.
There you go, guys. I think we can agree it's a million times better off there, so just got to go around and do
So here's the other side, and you see again where we've 2000 grit it, then 3000 compound and polished it off. The match is far better. Because you've got to remember when you're doing this that you won't get an immediate match to the paint next to it because that's faded over time. So one of the first things you want to do is polish the hell out of the adjoining panel to give yourself the best chance of it looking good. I mean, obviously there's going to be still a slight colour variation, but it looks 100 times better. I mean, you'll really tell when we get it out in the daylight. So what I'll do for the rest of the body now is just use a basic compound just to bring up the rest of the panels. I'm expending all my energy really on the meeting panels. The rest of it, just get a quick buff over with the little polisher and just try and bring it back for life. It's back to life. Then I'll bolt everything back on and I've got to get it in for its MOT and see what it needs for that. Quick check. That rear beam, I did look at this before we started getting into the paint. It's all good, but this is what it means when they talk about crusty. They just get a little bit crusty here and there. They very, very rarely ever rot right the way through. I do notice a drip here on the floor from the back of the silencer, so it may well be we need a new rear exhaust section, which is very common on these. So now we've auto glim compounded the rest of it. That's not quite as aggressive as the 3000 grit I was using to the blend panels, but yeah, so we polished the rest of the bodywork, and as you can see, she's come out looking very nice and shiny. So I used this cheap little polisher that Petey gave me, who's probably watching the channel. He does tend to watch my videos. He was clearing out his garage. He gave it to the other day. I didn't have one of those. I used to do everything with the bigger polisher, but this is nice actually because it's not too aggressive, does large areas quickly, puts much a nice buff. Finished off with a wool head afterwards, just smeared it all over on the pad, all over the panel, worked it in with the polisher, and then used the mop head to buff it off. and yeah, as you see, she's looking very shiny, and the new paint is matching quite a bit better now that the rest of the car's been polished. Like I say, well, the real test will be when we move it outside in a bit. Just had to nip over to Ford to get that blanker for the spotlights in there, because you can't get them from anywhere else. Total was £26.74 for that one piece. This is why it's so important, if you do builds like this to make money on, that you run a spreadsheet and note everything as you go along. I will note obviously parts like that I buy, but right down to things like if I buy sandpapers, if I buy compounds to clean it, they all get added on. Even if that, say that bottle was going to do other cars as well, I will add the total cost of that bottle when I buy it new to whichever car I'm building at the time. And then obviously if it goes onto other cars later on, that's fine enough, I don't have to factor it in, but I factor its full cost in on the first car, because you only have to think about it. You miss this and you miss this off, and you don't count them because they're consumables, for example. That could be, you know, £40 on one car. You do sort of, you know, you get to a point where you're doing 10 cars in a month, that's £400 you haven't accounted for. You think you've made a certain amount of money, but you're actually £400 less than that, because you haven't been counting stuff as you go along. So each car also gets, I have a motors account that costs £150 a month. Each car, I take a proportion of that and add it to the cost of their car that way. Everything, absolutely everything gets added. Any cloths and microfibers I buy, you know, cloths, anything like that, it gets added to a car build sheet, and then I know that what profit I say at the end is the true net profit, what is actually going in my pocket available to spend, rather than find that actually I haven't factored in 20 quid here, 20 quid there. All adds up very quickly over a month. And here we have it, guys, all pulled outside, all polished up, and I don't think we've done a bad job, guys. She's looking really smart, and the colour outside, actually, it looks alright. Camera always makes it look a little bit worse than it does in real life, but actually, to be honest, I think you're going to be hard pushed to tell. And everything is super shiny, as you can see. I had some wheel trims kicking around that I got for a Mirage that didn't fit. I put them on this. I thought it was a temporary measure, but I actually quite like them. Whoever had this car didn't skimp. It's got brand new Continentals all the way around, so it certainly wasn't run on a budget. Like I say, she's come out really nicely. Now she's got to go in for an MOT, and I still need to give the inside a clean. I haven't done that yet. Engine bay needs detailing, but I'm not going to get into any of that until I've gone down the route of finding out what needs MOT wise, in case I get it greasy and dirty. But no, really pleased with that. It's a really nice looking little car now. Super low miles, as I said, 34,000 miles on it. and I say it looks like it's been well looked after. It's going to make a cracking car for someone, and I say we'll be selling it, you know, 25-30% cheaper than normal retail. But yeah, really pleased that it's come out. It's relatively stress-free, this one, actually. I shouldn't say that before it's gone in for its MOT, should I? I've just jinxed the hell out of it. But yeah, comment down below, what do you think of the result? Let's get up close for you on the paint side of things. See the paint? It's got some orange peel in it, but then the factory paint's got orange peel in it. I mean, obviously, this is one of Stuart's Alphas, the more expensive restos. This would be wet sanded and buffed afterwards, but this is straight out the gun. All I've done is run the polisher over it quickly, but I'm more than happy with that. So big thanks to Stu for the paint job. You can't see the blend marks. It blended in here, wasn't it? Can't see that there. Well, there's a little bit of tape left over. We'll go around and do sort of a snagging of all those little bits. And then on this, we blended halfway into this wing, didn't we? Nothing there. And we blended halfway across this door, or sorry, 2/3 of the way across this door. So nothing there. And that is the new paint to the old paint there. So, I mean, I never say to you guys that rattle cans are the way to go. If you can get someone to do a spray job for you like this, then get it done. This is far too big an area to do any rattle canning on. But it shows you, doesn't it? So this was a category N from the auctions. I know a lot of people turn their nose up at category cars, but are you telling me something of this age hasn't had a bumper or a wing at some point in its life? It just probably had it done early enough that insurance company did the repair, rather than later in life they say they're not going to. And you can see with this one that when they got it in to the assessment to be assessed, they'll have gone, right, okay, well normally it would just be we need to paint the wing, but obviously there was the damage to the door from the previous repair, and that bonnet was all lacquer peely, so they'd have had a quote for doing all of that, which is why it would have been financially non-viable for the insurance company to do it. But for us, obviously, you know, with our time and labour, we can afford to get it done. And now you've got super low miles, super clean little Ford KA, and of course you're not going to have any stone chipping on the front of it. It's all in really good nick. So let's say we'll go through the inside on it after it's gone in for its MOT, but first let's get it in for an MOT and see what it needs. But like I said, you've got brand new Continentals all the way around. The rear beam looked okay when we got underneath, did that. The front sump looked okay. You could always check the sumps on these to see if they're leaking. So yeah, fingers crossed we don't end up with too much for the MOT, but we'll find out. So the Marlow boys have done me a solid. They came down with some paint chips. I didn't realise what they meant when they said they were coming down paint chips. They literally came down with probably about 120 different white paint chips, which apparently are all variations of the same Ford Crystal. I'm not sure how that works, but we sort of opted on one, and they've done me another can of 1K for it. I'd already keyed it up, so let's see if we can get this done before I go home tonight, so that I can buff this tomorrow. I'll be prepping this while the little red one goes through its MOT, because that's all booked in for its MOT tomorrow morning. So we'll see if we can't get this one squared away. I'm not going to warm the can up because I actually want to lay this on quite thick. I want it to go on thick, so if it's cold it'll go on thick. That doesn't mean it'll be more textured, but I'll be flattening and polishing it later anyway. So tonight I'm going to let it stay cold. Well, obviously warm it up a little bit, but not put it in hot water like I do often, so I can really lay it on with some decent thickness and then come back tomorrow and flood it all back. You'll notice the floor's wet. I tend to leave it wet intentionally when I'm spraying because it keeps the dust down. So if you are having to do, let's say you're painting on your driveway or something like that, good idea is have a sweep up and then wet the floor with a watering can or something before you start spraying, because it just helps prevent some of the dust coming up off the ground and sticking into your paint. Because I'm doing a large area, I'm getting out my adapter for rattle can. So this is a nice little adapter that you slip over the top of the rattle can and allows you to sort of use it like a spray gun. It just means you can take longer sweeps easier with this. So bung this on. I think they're about £5, no more than that. Can't remember where I got it from. You'll notice I'm trying to end my strokes over here and out over there rather than anywhere within the panel, because obviously if you end it in the middle you get like a thicker bit there. So as I've got the door here and the outside edge of the panel there, I can just do that. Initial signs are that it's a much better match. It doesn't have that sort of yellow creamy edge to it, and it's going on nice. So I'm just going to basically keep going until I run out of the can. I'm going to not worry too much about this texture because it's going to get flat and polished afterwards. I'm just going to make sure I've got good coverage, and hopefully it will be okay up against the original paint. You can see down here there's some original paint, and on the top edge here is original. So yeah, fingers crossed this is going to be a much better match than the last one. It took some going through, looking at all those chips, holding them against the paint and shining a light on them to try and find the right one. There were so many of them, I couldn't believe it. When they said they were going to come down and try and match it with some paint chips, I thought they were going to bring like 5 or 6, maybe 5 or 6 variations at max, but there was tons of them. But yeah, I think we might, touch wood, got the right one there. Well, that's it, last coat. You can see I went a bit wetter in the centre here where the damage area was, to give me enough paint to flat back, and then it's more textured up there where I'm going to be blending in there. So this time I've left off the fade out thinner on Stuart's advice that can give a yellow tinge and that it's not as necessary on white. So I'm going to go home now. Golden rule is don't fiddle with it, let it dry off, come back to it in the morning, see how it looks. But the white definitely looks crystal white, you know, what you'd expect, a sharper white, not that sort of creamy yellowy white I was getting before. So fingers crossed with a buff that matches up okay. And because the finish isn't too orange peely, I'm hoping a 3000 grit buff will do it. If not, I'll have to 2000 grit it and then buff it. But I want to avoid ideally taking any real level of paint off it if I can, because it's only the one can of rattle can on there. But that's it. Like I say, go home, don't look at any more, James, don't fiddle with it. We'll see how it looks in the morning. That's probably going to be it for this video, because I want to try and avoid getting into sort of 30-minute long videos. I know myself, when I'm looking at YouTube videos, I don't have more than sort of 15 minutes max to watch a video, so I don't want mine running into half an hour, 30 minutes at a time. So tomorrow we'll flat this paint back, put it back together, see how it looks, see if we can't get that cleaned up. We've got to do the interior still on that, get it out for sale, and we will find out what happens with the little red KA over there when it goes for MOT with the car care guys. So we'll see what happens with that. So hit that subscribe button so you know when I release the next video on what happens with these cars. And thanks again, as always, to everyone for watching and for all the comments. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. I never take it for granted that you watch the videos, and I'm very thankful that you enjoy my ramblings. Cheers, thanks a lot.